Arrogant man mocks woman's Afro hair at luxury hotel party. Then finds out she owns the luxury hotel. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, every light bouncing off the champagne glasses and polished marble floor. Laughter filled the air, loud, careless, the kind that belonged to people who believed the night revolved around them. Dozens of women in sleek black dresses floated through the crowd, their straight, glossy hair swaying as they leaned in close to men with expensive watches and louder voices. They looked like carbon copies of each other, elegant, smooth, polished. But in the corner of the room stood someone different. Her hair was a crown of thick, unapologetic curls, a bold afro that framed her face like a halo. Her skin glowed under the lights, deep and rich, more striking than any diamond in the room. She wasn't trying to blend in. She wasn't trying to impress. She simply was. And that was enough to make her stand out. "Yo, look at that!" A tall white man in a navy blue suit snickered, his arm draped lazily around a glass of whiskey. His name was Tyler. Everyone knew him, or at least pretended to. Money, arrogance, and entitlement had carved his personality into something sharp and cruel. He leaned toward his friends, nodding in her direction. "Tell me that doesn't look like a giant paintbrush just walked into the party." Laughter erupted around him. The men, equally smug in their tailored suits, slapped each other's backs as if he'd just delivered the joke of the century. One of them, a blonde guy with a Rolex flashing under the chandelier, chimed in, "Man, who even let her in here? This is supposed to be classy." Tyler smirked, his eyes still fixed on her. "Exactly. Look around. All these women smooth, perfect, put together. And then that." He gestured, waving his glass carelessly toward her. "She doesn't belong. She's not classy. This isn't some hair show." The laughter grew louder. A few guests turned their heads, catching the cruel spectacle, then quickly looked away. Nobody wanted to get involved. Nobody wanted to challenge the golden boy of the evening. But she heard every word. Her name was Maya. She stood still, shoulders squared, her chin slightly raised. On the surface, she looked unbothered, like the insults bounced off her skin. But inside, the words burned. She had been mocked before, she had been underestimated before, but tonight, something about their cruelty dug deeper. Maybe it was the arrogance. Maybe it was the ignorance. Or maybe it was the fact that they thought she didn't belong in a place she had built with her own hands. Because what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya wasn't just another woman in a black dress. She owned the hotel. Every golden chandelier, every marble tile, every velvet chair had passed under her approval before it found its place. This hotel wasn't just another stop on her journey. It was the crown jewel of the empire she had built from the ground up. Millions of dollars flowed through her company every year because she knew what people wanted, because she lived through every detail herself. And tonight, she had slipped into the crowd not as the owner, not as the powerful businesswoman with the Forbes profile, but as a guest, as one of them. She wanted to feel the night from their perspective, to understand the experience she provided. Instead, she found herself mocked, reduced to a punchline in her own house. Maya clenched her glass a little tighter, her reflection trembling in the champagne bubbles. For a moment, she wanted to disappear into the noise, to let them believe their lies. But another part of her, the part that had carried her through sleepless nights and ruthless boardrooms, was stirring. Tyler raised his voice again, calling out across the room, "Hey, you hear me? This ain't it, sweetheart. Next time, try something a little less wild." The laughter rolled again, cruel and sharp. Maya turned her head slowly, her eyes locking with his. The music dipped. A few people stopped dancing. A quiet ripple spread through the room, as if everyone could sense something was about to happen. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't smile either. She just let the silence stretch, her eyes locked on Tyler's smug grin until even his friends started to shift uncomfortably. Then she took a step forward. The soft click of her heels against the marble floor was enough to turn heads. Conversations hushed. The string quartet in the corner kept playing, but even their music felt distant now. Maya's voice came calm low, but sharp enough to cut through the air. "Say that again." Tyler smirked, delighted by the attention. "What about your hair?" He chuckled, raising his glass. "It's nothing personal, sweetheart. Just saying this is a classy place. You look out of place. That's all." Her chin lifted higher. "And what exactly makes them classy?" She nodded toward the women in straight hair and sleek dresses. "The way they all look the same. The way they blend in until nobody remembers their faces the next day. A murmur rippled through the room. Some people gasped quietly. Others exchanged glances, but said nothing. Tyler's smirk faltered just slightly. I didn't mean it like. Yes, you did. Maya's tone hardened, her voice now carrying across the ballroom. You meant it exactly how you said it. You wanted to humiliate me. You thought you could laugh at me, and everyone else would laugh with you. Her words hit like glass shattering. People froze, unsure if they should step back or lean closer. Tyler tried to regain his arrogance. He waved her off with a scoff. All right, relax. No need to make a scene. You're just a guest here. That word, guest, made Maya's lips curl into the faintest, most dangerous smile. Am I? She asked softly. The silence deepened. She let the pause hang there, her eyes steady, her presence growing larger than the chandeliers, larger than the laughter that had mocked her minutes ago. Inside, her heart pounded, not from fear but from the fire building in her chest. She had been underestimated before, but tonight, she wasn't just defending herself. She was defending every woman who had ever been told she wasn't enough. Maya took another step forward, her voice rising just enough to carry. You have no idea where you're standing, do you? Tyler blinked, thrown off by the calm certainty in her voice. He forced a laugh, but it came out thin, uneasy. And where's that supposed to be? He asked, trying to sound amused. Maya's gaze didn't waver. She let the question hang, let the tension twist through the air until the entire ballroom leaned in without meaning to. Then she spoke, clear and steady. You're standing in my hotel. The words landed like a thunderclap. The room went still. Even the violins faltered, the music dying mid-note. All eyes swung toward her, then back to Tyler, whose smirk collapsed into disbelief. Maya stepped closer, her dress catching the light, her afro haloing her face with a brilliance the chandeliers couldn't compete with. I built this place, she continued, her tone rising with quiet fire. Every detail you see, every glass you drink from, every chandelier above your head, I approved it. I know this hotel better than anyone in this room. Because I created it. From the ground up. Tyler's jaw tightened, but no words came out. His friends shifted awkwardly, their earlier laughter, now a heavy silence that betrayed their guilt. Maya's eyes swept across them all. And you thought I didn't belong. Her voice sharpened, each word cutting like glass. I am this place. You're the guest. Remember that. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people whispered her name, Maya Johnson, the entrepreneur who had turned a single boutique hotel into a multi-million-dollar empire. Articles had been written about her. She had graced magazine covers. But tonight, she had blended into the crowd so perfectly that no one had noticed until now. Tyler's face flushed, his arrogance slipping away like spilled whiskey. Maya leaned in just enough for only him and his circle to hear her next words. Class isn't about your suit or your money. Class is about respect. Something money clearly can't buy you. Then she straightened, her expression calm again, her power radiating without effort. The ballroom buzzed with murmurs, everyone watching, waiting for Tyler's response. But for the first time all night, he had none. Tyler's throat worked as if he was trying to form a comeback, but all that came out was a nervous chuckle. All right, okay, fine. You're the owner. Didn't know that. No harm meant, right? He glanced at his friends for backup, but none of them dared to meet his eyes. They were already stepping back, putting distance between themselves and his sinking ship. Maya tilted her head, her calm smile laced with steel. No harm meant? You mocked me in my own home, in front of my guests. You tried to strip me down to a joke. The weight in her voice sent a chill through the room. Everyone knew this was no longer just about Tyler. It was about every arrogant man who thought cruelty passed for charm. Someone in the crowd, a woman in a pearl necklace, suddenly clapped. Just once. Then another guest joined. And another. Within seconds, the ballroom filled with applause, the kind that carried both admiration and judgment. Admiration for Maya, judgment for Tyler. Tyler's face reddened, his arrogance collapsing under the sound. He raised his hands, trying to wave it off. All right, enough. Let's not make this a big. But it was too late. The room had chosen its side. Maya turned slightly, addressing the guests instead of him. This hotel was built to welcome people, to celebrate them, to make sure no one feels less than anyone else. That is what true class looks like. The applause swelled louder. Tyler shrank, his shoulders stiff as though the suit he wore suddenly didn't fit. For the first time all evening, his voice held no confidence. Maybe I should get some air, he muttered, setting down his untouched whiskey. He walked toward the exit, but the crowd parted in silence, eyes following him. His friends trailed behind, their laughter long gone. Maya stood tall, her afro glowing beneath the chandeliers, her glass of champagne still steady in her hand. She didn't chase him, didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The silence he left behind was victory enough. Then, turning back to the crowd, she lifted her glass. Now, she said with a small, radiant smile, let's enjoy the rest of the night. The music picked up again. The guests cheered. And for the first time that evening, the ballroom felt alive, not because of Tyler's arrogance, but because Maya had reminded them what real power looked like. As the music returned and the crowd began to move again, something had shifted in the air. It wasn't the same shallow chatter from earlier. It was thicker, charged, as if everyone now saw the room differently. A woman in a silk gown approached Maya first, her eyes wide with a mixture of embarrassment and admiration. "Ms. Johnson," she said softly, I didn't realize it was you. That was powerful. Truly." Maya smiled politely, her voice warm but measured. "Thank you. But it shouldn't take my name for people to understand respect." The woman lowered her gaze, nodding, before slipping back into the crowd. Next came a young couple, probably in their late 20s. The man adjusted his tie nervously. "I just wanted to say, I've followed your story since you opened your first boutique hotel in Atlanta. You inspire people like us who are just starting out." Maya's expression softened, her guard easing for the first time that night. "Then don't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do. If I had listened, I wouldn't be standing here today." The couple beamed, thanking her before stepping aside. But not everyone was so graceful. A middle-aged man with too much cologne tried to push his way forward, extending his hand with a rehearsed smile. "Ms. Johnson, what a surprise. I must say, your hotels are exceptional. Perhaps we could schedule a lunch? I have some business proposals I think would interest you." Maya didn't even touch his hand. She simply looked at him, her eyes steady, until his smile wilted. "Tonight is not about business," she said coolly. "Enjoy the party." The man cleared his throat, muttered something, and backed away quickly. Across the room, whispers flowed like electricity. "She owns this place? She built the whole chain herself? Did you see Tyler's face?" And through it all, Maya stood tall in her black dress, her afro like a crown under the chandeliers. For years, she had walked into rooms where people underestimated her, dismissed her, tried to shrink her down. But here in this room, in her own hotel, she had turned mockery into a lesson. Still, as she lifted her champagne again, her eyes swept over the crowd with a quiet thought. Respect was earned tonight. But tomorrow? Tomorrow there will be another fight. Another reminder to give. And I'll be ready. She took a slow sip, letting the night fold around her, the applause still echoing faintly in the back of her mind. Tyler didn't leave the hotel. Not yet. He lingered at the bar, nursing a drink he didn't even want, his jaw clenched tight. Every time someone passed, he could feel their eyes on him, whispering, smirking. He had always been the center of attention, now he was the punchline. His friend, the blonde with the Rolex, leaned in. "Man, let's just go. You can't win this one." Tyler's eyes burned with stubborn pride. "She embarrassed me. In front of everyone." "She owns the hotel," his friend whispered harshly. "You don't come back from that. Just let it go." But Tyler couldn't. His ego had never been bruised like this. And in his mind, bruises demanded payback. Across the ballroom, Maya noticed him still there, lurking like a shadow that refused to fade. She didn't let it rattle her. She had dealt with men like him before, the kind who thought the world bent to their will, who mistook arrogance for strength. She turned away, choosing instead to focus on her guests. Smiles, small conversations, the kind of graceful hosting that came naturally to her. But underneath, her thoughts churned. Hours later, when the music softened and the crowd thinned, Maya finally retreated. She slipped into the private elevator reserved only for her, the mirrored walls reflecting her steady composure. When the doors opened to the penthouse suite, her sanctuary above the city, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The room was quiet, washed in moonlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows. She set her shoes aside, poured herself a glass of water, and walked barefoot across the cool marble. Only then did the mask fall. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the glass down. The insults replayed in her mind, sharp and mocking. "Paintbrush, not classy, doesn't belong." For a brief, painful moment, the old wounds tugged at her. She thought about the little girl she once was, the one who had been told her hair was too wild, her skin too dark, her dreams too big. But then she looked out at the skyline. The glittering city stretched endlessly before her, and in its reflection, she saw herself, strong, radiant, unshaken. Maya whispered to the glass, her voice quiet but firm. "You tried to make me small, but I've never been small. Not then, not now, not ever." She lifted her chin, letting the moonlight crown her the way the chandeliers had hours before. Tomorrow, there would be more battles, more doubters, more Tylers. But tonight, in her own space, she allowed herself to feel both the sting and the strength. And that balance, that fire wrapped in grace, was what made her unstoppable. Tyler left the hotel before dawn, his pride dragging behind him like a torn coat. No one cared. No one followed. By the next morning, his name was already a whisper drowned out by the echo of Maya's voice. Maya, on the other hand, rose early. She stood in her penthouse, sunlight spilling across the city she had claimed as her own. She dressed not in disguise this time, but in a sharp white suit that spoke of power without needing to shout. Downstairs, her staff was already at work, polishing, arranging, preparing. They greeted her with respect that came not from fear, but from admiration. They knew her. They knew the woman behind the empire, the one who didn't just build hotels, but built people too. As she walked through the lobby, guests turned, some in awe, some with quiet smiles. Whispers of last night's scene traveled with her, but now the tone was different. Not ridicule, not doubt, respect. She paused at the grand entrance, where the glass doors framed the endless stretch of the city. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe it in, the weight of her journey, the beauty of her resilience. Then she smiled, soft but unshakable. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them try to shrink her down. Every time they did, she only grew larger. Because Maya wasn't just a woman in a black dress. She was the woman who owned the room. And the world was finally beginning to see it.